dissenters, which tells you really where the center of power and the priorities of this party are right now. And also, historians are going to have a hard time explaining the scene that you saw today where the party that lost control is jubilant, celebrating, eating popcorn. And the party that is taking control, that would normally have this moment of triumph and jubilation and expectation, has decided instead to pull the pin on the grenade and toss it among themselves. What an extraordinary moment of political failure by a political party.
The smooth transition on the Democratic side, it was remarkable, and it's left Hakeem Jeffries with more votes for Speaker than Kevin McCarthy. Right? And let's just talk bench for just a second. I want to get all of you guys in on this conversation, because the other issue is who have they got to replace him with, right? Marjorie Taylor Greene is moaning. Can we just play this real quick? I don't know how much time we have. Let's play Marjorie Taylor Greene. This is how you go establishment. Watch her do it. Watch her work.
I haven't asked for one thing for myself, and I'm the only Republican that has 0 committees. I find out that it's my Freedom Caucus colleagues and my supposed friends that went and did that, and they asked nothing for me. Nothing. That's what I found out in there. I am furious.
The operative word is me. There's no, I'm furious that, we're not going to be able to do X policy-wise. We're not going to be able to change Y. It's me. I didn't get anything. I was negotiating. You want to talk about the swamp. Yeah. It doesn't get more back room than saying in the back room, I want something for me. So that just shows where she lands. But just for the moment, let's just go through very quickly. I'll give each of you guys a minute. Who have they got as backup?
Steve Scalise. Jim Jordan, who got the second most votes in the Republican conference for Speaker today, even though he has said he doesn't want it.
He doesn't have 200. There's no 218 votes for that guy. No. And the minute he became Speaker, the next day, the George Clooney executive-produced documentary about what he did when he was assistant coach in Ohio and all of those young men were assaulted is coming out.
Becomes center
stage.
So
he doesn't want to be Speaker for good reason.
And that's why I think Scalise is probably the most likely candidate.
David Duke without the baggage.
Because Scalise, now, understand, too, the biggest issue with McCarthy is that this is a guy who stands for nothing. He's all things to all people all the time. With Scalise, the Republican conference believes is ideologically consistent. They know who he is. There is a consistency in the leadership there. He has already been elected to leadership multiple times. They feel more comfortable with him. The biggest issue with McCarthy is trust.
He has to go and raise money. Steve Scalise, if he's the Speaker.
Where does he raise it?
Longtime political reporter claims that when she first met Scalise, when David Duke was a state representative, Scalise, who's from Louisiana as well, told her, I was like David Duke without the baggage. Roll call, the interview. Scalise claimed in 1999 that he embraced many of the same conservative views as David Duke, but is more viable. Scalise appeared at a white supremacist event led by a group founded by David Duke. Chip Roy, who gave a speech today, gave a lovely speech for McCarthy. That's the guy who endorsed lynchings in Texas. The bench is rotten.
I mean, look, Joy, this is a serious moment that's going on with the Republican Party right now. You have a party that has won the majority that cannot govern. There are people in this country right now who are struggling to pay their rent. There are families in this country right now who need child care, health care. There are dozens of individuals who are now released from prison who need some type of help with reform and trade and education. You have a party that's not going to tackle any of this. You have a political party that what we saw with Marjorie Taylor Greene, it's not about the American people. It's about themselves. It's an egoist party that only cares about its own advantages versus how to move the needle forward for the average person.
And Charlie Sykes, last word to you on Elise Stefanik, who's the last unnamed member of this cabal, somebody who wanted to be in the Buttigieg administration. She ain't getting it either.
No, the problem is it doesn't matter who's on the bench because whoever becomes Speaker will be, immediately powerless and weak. So you're going from a powerful Speaker to one of the puniest speakers that we have ever had. It does not matter who ends up with this job because we've already seen this is a party that is incapable and uninterested in governing.
No one with a brain wants that job. And then Kevin, I guess, is the one who wants it. So I don't know what that means. Sir Michael Singleton, Kurt Brandel, and Charlie Sykes. If you think the start of the 118th Congress was exciting, wait to hear about what happened to the 74th Congress. NBC News presidential historian Michael Beschloss joins us next. As the House of Representatives remains speakerless for now, it is important to note just how historic what we saw today into tonight really is. I mean, rarely does it ever take more than one round of voting to elect a speaker. In fact, in the past century and a half, only twice has the vote for speaker required multiple ballots. The last time it happened was exactly 100 years ago, in 1923, when Congressman Frederick Gillette was elected on the 9th ballot. And that took a couple of days. Before that, there was the longest and most contentious speaker vote in U.S. history, which happened in 1856 during the 34th Congress. It took nearly 2 months for the House to choose its leader, as anti-slavery Congressman Nathaniel Banks ran against multiple candidates who wanted to expand slavery. Banks finally won after 133 rounds of voting. There was also the bizarre situation in 1931, when after Republicans won a 2-seat House majority in the 1930 midterms, a year after the stock market crash that sparked the Great Depression, 14 members elect died. They died between Election Day and the start of the 72nd Congress, including the sitting speaker, Nicholas Longworth III, the guy that the House building is named after, giving Democrats control of the House and the speakership to John Nance Garner. You can't make it up. It's history. Joining me now is NBC News presidential historian Michael Beschloss. Now, I love a wormhole, Michael, and that was my favorite wormhole today. It has happened before. But what I would love for you to talk about is when these narrow majorities happen and there's a contentious vote for speaker, what tends to happen to the party that wins?
Well, in the old days, they could go on, just as you were saying, Joy, like 1855, 1856, it went over New Year's, and they could go on for 2 months, and they could have 133 ballots because there wasn't modern press coverage, and I would guess that out in Illinois, where I grew up, people were not, mesmerized by every minute of what was going on in the House of Representatives the way that at least some people are nowadays. And the same thing with 1923. And the other thing is, it was before the Cold War. It was before the times that we're living in. The Congress was not seen as hugely important to every single minute of what's going on in our economy and national security. So Americans were willing to put up with these long fights. But in recent years, until 1994, the kind of person who would be the leader of the House, more or less, would be someone like Gerald Ford or someone like Bob Michel, 2 Republican leaders, both of whom I knew, two of the nicest guys on earth. And they were elected because they could get along with their colleagues. Gerald Ford played golf with Tip O'Neill. They were nice people. They raised money. And so everything was sort of a world that we do not know now. Then comes Newt Gingrich, 1990.
Yes. Please, say more.
Well, Gingrich came in and said, we Republicans have been out of power for 40 years. We've been letting the Democrats eat our breakfast and lunch, and we can change that by being much more assertive, saying that if you elect us, we'll have a contract with America, maybe 10 things like a balanced budget, welfare reform that we will insist upon. And the other thing is the old days of Democrats and Republicans getting along, that is no more. There's going to be constant combat. And so Gingrich comes in 1994, got 54 seats. Compare that to that election in November. 54 seats, huge seat change. Bill Clinton, who was president, was asked at a press conference, are you relevant in light of this big congressional victory by Republicans? And, Clinton was almost